Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earle and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Today's guest, Sandra Manzieri, is a teacher, a mother, a product of public schools, an informed citizen willing to roll up her sleeves and work for our children, our families, our teachers, and accountability. For more than 2 decades, Sandra has been a Miami-Dade County public school teacher in District 6. Teaching is not a career she fell into or stumbled upon. Education has been and continues to be her passion. She took a pay cut to become a teacher. Sandra sought out opportunities to serve in the PTA, as a mentor on the Educational Excellence School Advisory Council, and like many parents of special needs children, she had to learn to advocate for unmet needs. She believes in parental rights, in fair pay and improved benefits for teachers, in meeting the needs of our most vulnerable students, in transparency, and holding decision makers accountable. And Sandra is ready to serve you.
What I've seen also in schools is that, which also is a reason that I ran, is that we're moving so far away from what is school, what is the purpose of a school, okay? Why do we have schools? We have schools to keep children safe. But we have schools to teach them to read, to teach them mathematics, to teach them about our history and the world's history, to teach them about basic like accounting and how to balance a checkbook and how to count money and basic economics. We're moving so far away from that. Everything now is an agenda-driven, politically driven agenda that is sneaking in very slowly. And I get very upset when I hear things like, oh, the right wants to control everything and they want to impose these radical views in our school children. The right wants to push religion in our schools. The right wants to support white supremacy and oppress people of color. I can tell you, as a person that I believe I'm very center-minded in many ways and very fair, I've never seen anything right being in anything in school, ever. Right. I've never seen the infusion of religion. I've never seen the infusion of white supremacy. I've never seen any of that. But I have seen a lot of the left ideology sneaking into the books. And not just left, but far left. But it's very clever the way that they present everything. Everything is presented in the realm of justice and equity and feelings of social, emotional, and how we feel. So it's guised as something very good, but when you look at it deeply and you analyze it objectively, you see that there's a very clear agenda. And for me, it's worrisome because there are many topics there that I'm not prepared to discuss with a 5 or 6 year olds, and I will not. And in fact, this last year, the year before, I was just perusing the curriculum resources that we have on our district portal. And there was this was after the George Floyd riots, which was a tragedy. It was a horrible thing what happened. And then the consequences of it was horrendous. But there was this whole toolkit called a social justice toolkit. And I've always taught about slavery, even to little children. It's presented. I've always taught about the the suffering of African Americans in this country, which is real. The suffering of Japanese people when they were interned, the suffering of Mexicans, how they have been mistreated. This is not something that's sugar coated. It's taught.
Right.
So I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me go in there and check out the social justice toolkit. And then as I'm looking at it, it's
And do you believe that in some ways, like parents kind of trusted the system and they gave up, right? They weren't paying attention to what the kids were learning in schools.
absolutely, absolutely. I believe that parents, especially in Miami, we have a lot of people coming from other countries, and they're fleeing
Mhm.
uh, countries that are in horrible situations. They're fleeing from poverty, but they're also fleeing from socialism, and they're fleeing from communism, and they're fleeing from, and they see the United States as this utopia, as this perfect society. And they, the United States, would never be teaching these ideologies. But the way that it's taught is taught in a way that's very, it seems very, very
Innocent.
passive, very
Yeah.
kind, very accepting, very nurturing. So it's hard, I believe that we have to, as parents, be very involved. And this whole
But what are some of the ways that we can change that? Because I know so many parents want to get involved and they don't know where to start. They don't know how to help or how to change the system because they feel helpless.
Well, I would say that they need to definitely join their parent teacher association, the PTA. And that doesn't mean that you have to be at every meeting or that you have to be on the board and be at the school every day, but that it's an excellent source of what's going on in the school. And they provide a lot of information. I was on the PTA board at my school this year, and I'll tell you about that later and how it opened up a whole can of worms there. But that's very important for parents to be involved in the PTA at their school. There's something called an educational excellence. It's called the ESAC, uh,
Mhm.
and parents need to be involved in that. They have a meeting once a month, and that's the most powerful committee in a school that drives the school improvement plan. So whatever the parents value, and based on the data of how the children in that school are performing, they develop the school improvement plan to help make the school better. And parents and the community have the right to be in that meeting once a month and to offer input. And the ESAC is the one that approves that school improvement plan. So without the approval of the ESAC, the school improvement plan doesn't go into plan. Parents need to be there. It's a meeting once a month, and they need to be very vocal about what they expect for their school. What I have found is that parents don't understand that they hold all the power. They
Yes.
hold all the power because these schools belong to the families, to the taxpayers. The schools do not belong to the district. They do not belong to the principal. They do not belong to the region. They belong to the parents. Are parents going to receive their results overnight? No, but they need to be vigilant and they need to be constant, constant, constant. I always, so parents need to understand that they hold all the tools. They just need to use them. So if I could give parents a piece of advice, it would be join the PTA, join the ESAC, be vocal. Uh, you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be rude. You just have to be persistent and know your rights. Everything is on the district website. Everything is public record. Everything. The school cannot run a budget and keep it secret. Those budgets are public record. Question the budget. Ask, why aren't you putting money here? Question your board members. Why doesn't my school have, I don't know, a Spanish language program? Or why doesn't my school offer after school activities? Why? It's your right to
Right.
ask and to push for these things. If that's what the community needs, then they need to be vocal about it. One thing that I've been doing just lately is I've been driving around the schools because my school, for example, is falling apart. The building The other thing that I find in schools in particular is that the teacher is expected to be the interventionist, the psychologist, the parent, the babysitter, the groomer. We like to groom their hair and to make sure that we have to do everything in the classroom. So every time they're giving us additional duties, and we cannot do everything. A teacher cannot. I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm not a trained psychiatrist. I can talk to a child, about, how was your day today, and try to prep them up and try to make them feel happy and encourage them and all of these things. But I don't feel like I have the expertise to deal with these issues. And we do not, they pumped all this money into putting social workers in schools, or putting psychologists in our schools, and I don't see that. I don't see any of I don't see any of that. I don't know where the money's going. We have a counselor, but the counselor is extremely busy pushing paperwork, doing paperwork. Her paperwork, she has to do all the filing for all the gifted students, all the paperwork for the students that have special needs. She has to also meet with parents when they have a concern because the kid is being bullied. It's a million things. She also has to cover classes if the teacher's sick and at the last minute and there's no one to cover a class. She has to, so many things. Do you actually believe that she has time to really deal with these deep issues if they arise at school?
Right.
I don't think so.
Right. And it's such a great tool to have a psychologist or psychiatrist in school, because I think so much of an abuse would be flagged sooner rather than later if they really had time to speak to these children and really get down to those issues that are causing these types of behavior. I understand that nobody just acts the way that they act without a reason, right? Every action has a cause.
Right.
But we need to flag these causes sooner rather than later, and we don't tend to concentrate on it as a society. And I guess it's also another divisive tool that's used against us, right? Because we recognize that there are issues, we recognize that there are problems, but no one's doing anything about it. It's like you said, though, there is no budget, there is not enough people, and a teacher has 25, 26 kids. Like, there is no way you have time to flag all of this. And like you said, you guys are not trained professionals. That's not the first thing that would rise up, because you also have a job of teaching and educating and developing these human beings. And
it's crazy. And that's the other thing that I tell people all the time. It's like, I'm not in the business of making toasters or making plates or pots. I'm in the business of teaching children which are the future, which are the future citizens. So this is a very important job, and we have to be very careful with what we're putting inside because we are actually building the future. We're building
What are your thoughts when it comes to safety? We had a few school shootings. But I'm positive there are ways we can avoid it. We can protect our children, but they just simply don't do it. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, my thoughts on that are a little, it's terrifying to think that something like this could happen to our children, but it's also terrifying to do a drill with 6-year-olds and have them go into the corner when it's blared on the speaker, red code, red code, red code, and they don't know if it's a practice or if it's the real thing, and they're horrified and they're crying, and it's difficult, but I understand that that's the times we're living in, and they have to be prepared. And I can't tell a child this can never happen, or this is impossible, don't worry. I can't, because it's possible. So I try to be as